say again this morning, we certainly do desire, very much so, desire and interest in your prayers for just a few minutes this morning. So try our very, very best tonight for the Lord to stand before you this morning. I encourage you again today to follow and obey the Spirit of the Lord. You need to get up and say or move out or come to this altar at any time today. I hope and trust that you'll do that this morning and that you'll just follow and obey the Lord this morning. But we've got a little scripture. We'll be reading over in the book of John. If you want to be turning there in your Bibles this morning. It seems like that this scripture, I don't seem like it, I know it this morning. Went right along with our Sunday school lesson this morning. Even talked on it just a little bit this morning. I'm thankful to witness that the Lord sends this morning. The Lord knows just exactly this morning, church, what we stand in need of this morning. The Lord knows just exactly this morning where we're at, the condition that we're in this morning. To me, each and every one, as I look around Mitchell, looks just fine and pleasant and happy go carefree this morning. Now the Lord knows our heart this morning. The Lord knows just exactly what we're in need of. So I hope and trust that you're looking at to Him this morning. And that will be willing this morning. You pray for just a few minutes. I'll get right to where I need to be in a few minutes. But I hope and trust this morning that we'll be willing tonight to seek Him out this morning. Get down to the place, Lord, this morning, church, where the Lord is pleased with us. And it's been a strength and an uplift to us this morning. Listen this morning. It's a Christian way in that for a Christian this morning. It's a Christian way in that for me this morning. So I encourage you, church this morning, it's a Christian way. I'm writing that into the service this morning. I don't give up and but to press on. I'll bless you, try my best to get to my scripture here in just a minute this morning. Over in the book of John, the first chapter. Like I said, very, very familiar scripture. Thought during Sunday school we was going to get right into it there then. That would have been all right too. I'm going to go down and start reading in the 6th verse there in the first chapter in the book of John this morning. You pray for just a few minutes this morning, church, that I can get where I need to be this morning. First chapter, verse 6 in the book of John. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. The same came for a witness to bear witness of the Lord, that all men through him might believe. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. He came into his own, and his own received him not. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name, which were born not of blood, nor of the will of flesh, nor the will of man, but of God. And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, and the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. I'm going to leave off reading right there, if correctly read this morning for just a few minutes. I may read just a little bit more here in a few minutes or as we go along, but right there is where we'll stop at for right now this morning. And like I said, you pray for me for just a few minutes. Seems like I'm worried. I've said this different times. Preaching to me comes in different ways. There's times where we just come far and just can't wait to get to the Lord's house. But this morning seems like that there's a nervous and a dread hang to it this morning. I don't know how to explain it to you other than that. So you pray for just a little while. But I want to talk to you this morning, just a few minutes, about John the Baptist and John's job and John's role this morning. I go back, I hope I can tie it to where I started there, about each and every one once that we became saved and that we became a child of God this morning. Our names is recorded in the Lamb's Book of Life this morning. Once that time comes this morning, we've got a responsibility in that to our fellow man. You look at it as a responsibility, as a job, ever how you want to look at it this morning. But you've got some responsibilities this morning. You've got some things this morning, but that's required of you and I today. We've got some things that the Lord expects out of us this morning. John the Baptist, he came. I want to talk about John's job for just a few minutes. John's job was to come right before Christ and to preach in the coming of Jesus Christ. John was to prepare the people this morning that Christ was coming. And you can read and study about John. He went about and he baptized them, but he just baptized them with water. He was preaching that come and he'd tell them, there'll be one behind me that'll baptize you with Spirit this morning. That'll mean more to you this morning. I thought about last Sunday as we gathered over together there, we had a baptizing. And I always enjoy being part of a baptizing this morning. But listen, that service that took place over there, that thing that we went through, that baptism, is not what's going to get those candidates to heaven today. See, I'm a lot like John. I can just baptize you with water this morning. I love to be a part of it this morning. I love to, that's one of my more favorite things of being a pastor, is getting to be a baptizing this morning. Let's be honest with you this morning. Listen, all that I can do is baptize you with water this morning. But John's job was to come and to be a light in that, to bear witness of Jesus Christ. And I thought about that this week actually. And really all of us has got the same job that John had this morning. Now Christ has already came. Christ has already died and died upon the cross. Christ has already ascended back to heaven and positioned that upon the right hand of the Father this morning. I believe that with all my heart this morning. And He's sitting there making intercession for you and I. But what do you make about making intercession for you and I? He's sitting there with God. And when I come and I sin and I fail and I come short this morning, I believe there's times, but that He calls me by name. And He says, Father, and I remember that one's mine this morning. Listen, I remember, Father, His name's recorded here in the Lamb's Book of Life this morning. We've got to have mercy on that one. That one's one of ours this morning. I believe that with all my heart this morning. Making intercession for you and I today. I want to get back to John for just a minute. John's job this morning. John's job, it was one that came and went. My time here on this earth, my job, it'll come and it'll go this morning. But when Christ came and John began, his job was fulfilled. If you'll have it that way this morning, listen, it didn't just stop right there. After Christ came and died upon the cross, there was the disciples, and He sent them out into the world to preach the gospel this morning. Listen, that's where we're coming to play at today, church. It's our responsibility this morning to be a light to the lost and dying world this morning. I want to back up and I want to read those verses at the start of the chapter. Some thought I was maybe going to skip over that. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Now these 5 verses right here, they cover a lot this morning. There's a lot of material to cover with these verses. But it goes back, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was same today. It's still the exact same today. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by Him. Without Him was not anything made that was made. In Him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth into darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. Now let me get into this morning. Let me give John a little bit of a rest this morning. The day and time, now I've touched on this the last few weeks a little bit this morning. But the day and time that we're living in this morning, I really feel like with Christians this morning, and I'm not just saying that this is MCM or anything like that this morning, but this is me. They're kind of observing things in the last few months. The Lord beginning to speak to me and to show me things. And I really believe this morning, church, and as I stand before you this morning, I've got everyone that's here I consider a close, dear friend and family to me this morning. But so many times, the day and time that we're living in this morning, are we truly being Christians outside of the church this morning? Outside of the church this morning. Let me go back to John for just a few minutes. The Bible says that John, you can go back over here, I believe it's in Mark. You can go back to the first chapter in the book of Mark. You can begin to read about John. Let's see if I can find it. Right here, yes, the 6th verse. And John was clothed with camel's hair, and with a girdle of skin about his loins. And he did eat locusts and wild honey, and preached, saying, There cometh one mightier than I after me, that latcheth of whose shoes I am not worthy to stoop down and unloose. But that 6th verse, sir. John was clothed with camel's hair and girdled with skin. John didn't have any possessions, worldly possessions. If he had a bit, he'd have went to the store, he'd have went to a merchant somewhere or another and got him some clothing this morning. But listen, what John had this morning, was the Spirit of God in him this morning. And John had a job to do today, Mitchell. And John put that job first and foremost above anything else in his life today. How many of us today are willing to do that? How many of us are willing to do that this morning? I'm getting a lot of blank looks and beginning to fan and look around up at the ceiling and count the little whatnots and this and that looks this morning. And that's all right this morning. I still love you this morning. I've been guilty, saith and done the same old thing this morning. I've been listening this morning. It's needful. It's a need, a necessity this morning. A church people, the day and time that we're living in, that we not play church or play Christian, but that we become them this morning. And our Sunday school class had talked about putting on the whole armor this morning. The whole armor of God this morning. It didn't say, Mitchell, to go and pick you out a piece that you liked and just take that one piece this morning. Listen, you've got to take the whole thing this morning. Put the whole thing on and use it all this morning. Oh, John, he had a job to do. He had a responsibility. You and I, we've got a job to do this morning. Well, preacher, what's our job this morning? Our job is to let the lost and dying world this morning know about Jesus Christ this morning. How do I do that? How do I do that this morning? I've got to work. I've got to support my family. I've got bills to pay. Listen, I tell you how you do that this morning. You live your life according to the way that the Scripture this morning leads and guides and directs us to live our life this morning. You let that light shine along this route of life this morning, and listen, He'll be a help in that. That light will go out this morning. doing a few things before we come to men's meeting. And I began to think about people in my life that have been an inspiration, have been a light. There's people in my life, thinking about in my mind, that have been an inspiration and a light to me, and they never know it. I remember going to church one Sunday night, and a pastor friend of mine, I don't even remember what he said, but I was broken hearted, so I was just ready to throw my hands up and quit this morning. I was wore out and I was tired. I got it on my mind that evening to go to church where this preacher friend of mine pastored at the time. And I went that night, and I went in and I sat down. I never said a word that whole service. I was there. After church that night, my old buddy come and put his arm around me and loved on me just a minute. Like I said, I don't even remember what he said. The Lord spoke to me and said, He loves you, and so do I this morning. I went out from there this morning. Like I said, I never had an opportunity to tell that man what that meant to me, and I'm sure he wouldn't know what I was talking about. But by him being willing to follow and obey the Lord. Now listen to this part. I'm not looking for no pat on the back, but I had to be willing that night. God knows what I needed. God knows what I needed this season. God knows where the condition I was in. He knows just where I was at. And I believe with all of my heart that He sent me there for that. I had to be willing to go get my blessing. How many of us today are willing to go get our blessing this morning? How many of us today are willing to use our gifts and talents for the honor and glory of God, but to receive our blessing today? Well, preacher, I've got a lot going on. This virus thing's got everything left. Have you watched the news lately? I'm scared to go anywhere. I'm just running things through our mind that we can you just believe the miserable shape of the things is in this morning? Listen to me, people, I'm going to tell you something. I don't agree with everything that's going on out here in this world, but I'm going to tell you, and I believe this with all my heart, I live in the best country. I believe in the best country. I live in the best country that there is out here. I'm proud of where I'm from this morning. Listen, it's important us as Christians today to let the rest of the world know that we're proud of where we come from this morning. That it means something to us this morning. My little community that I grew up in, there's a lot of change that's went on in it. There's a lot of them old timers that's letting go. But I'm proud of my little community. It's home to me this morning. I'm proud of my little church this morning. It's home to me this morning. I'm thankful this morning. I'm thankful this morning. I thought this week about Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah down there. God didn't send Lot to Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot went there. First of all, he pitched his tent looking at it. He pitched his tent. You go back into the Old Testament. I didn't mean to get into all this morning. But you go back into the Old Testament, turn Mitchell. The Bible says that he pitched his tent. Looking that way this morning. He's seen things down there that naturally speaking was pleasing to the eye this morning. Listen, naturally speaking, this world's got things that's pleasing to the eye this morning. But listen, that don't make it okay in God's eyes to partake in it this morning. Nowhere in the scripture did it say God said, Lot, it'd be all right if you go down there for a few days. Go down there for a little while. Lot got to pick first which direction he went in, people. Lot got to pick which way that him and his people headed this morning first. And I preached it like this. This is how it works as being a Christian and getting out of fellowship of God. You don't have to get out of church to get out of fellowship with God this morning. That's something that I know about. I can talk about that. I never have been one that's been out of going and attending church this morning. But listen, there's been a time or two in my life that I have been the furthest away from God. Has anybody hadn't darkened the doors in 10, 15, 20 years this morning? And I still showed up. The Lord, He didn't just right away go to Sodom and Gomorrah. It's just tent looking that way. I always pictured it like this and been up on the ridge, up on the mountaintop. Seth, I believe you'd go out there at night, sit there in front of his tent, maybe around the fire. You could see and hear down there what was going on. Boy, I'd like to go down there for an evening. Just one night down there, I'd like to go down there and I'd like to live it up a little bit this morning. No Satan ain't out of my mind come back and say, well, he'll be all right if you go down there for this little while. You're one of God's children this morning. You know who God is. Go on down there for just a little while. You look what it costs a lot in the end this morning. You may say, well, my goodness, preacher. Oh, my goodness. All that we've seen and had happen, you won't come in here and preach this morning. Remember what I preached to you a long time ago? I'm just the messenger boy. I'm just the messenger boy. That's all I am, bitch. I'm just the messenger boy. God knows our heart. God knows what we're standing in need of this morning. God this morning knows who Lot was. God loved Lot this morning. And listen, God loves you this morning. But I think it's important sometimes for us to be reminded that we've got a job to do. John had a job to do. I ain't forgotten what's like that. Let me get back to my place. The light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. The world's not going to comprehend me, you Mitchell Ferguson. No, the world's going to look at this, and they're going to say, look at that foolish thing. He's got up, and he's hollered, and he's cried, and he's jumped and moved around this morning. I don't understand that. Now listen, being a Christian is like anything else. It takes a little education to get there this morning. It takes a little learning this morning to get there. How do I get educated? How do I get there this morning? You start out by placing yourself with God's people this morning. You start out by attending service this morning and learning that what the gospel's all about this morning. You still went half here Sunday? Let me say this first. When I started out preaching, I thought, I'd like to be like that man there. It'd go on a few months missing, I'd hear some other old preacher preach, but I think I'd like to be like that. And that went on for a few years, Seth. I tried to pick me out somebody I wanted to pattern after this morning. It don't work that way. It don't work that way this morning. I just got to be Tim. You go ahead in life, you want to cry, if you want to cry, if you want to, but I'm just Tim, and I just who I am this morning. That's all there is to it this morning. I've just got to do it this morning. The way that God gives it to me, the way that God instructs me this morning. But listen, if it's from God, it's all right. If it's not from God this morning, leave it alone. I've said this different times in preaching. Papa used to always say, take a sifter to church with you. There'll be a little bit that you want to sift out over here. Then leave it alone this morning. There'll be just a little bit, Mitchell, he'd say. There'll be just a little bit somewhere during the start to the end of the service. There'll be a little bit to sift out over here. That part that you sift out this morning, that's where man, that's the world come into his heart this morning. And there's just a little something. Like pleasing to God. I get me great names on that this morning. That's all right. The light shineth in darkness. The darkness comprehended it not. The world ain't going to comprehend us this morning. No, the world ain't going to understand us this morning. It ain't going to be pleasing in that to the world. It ain't going to be cool in that to the world. I don't reckon I ever was cool in my life. I thought it was a time or two, tried to be. No, I don't reckon I ever was. It's what you call cool. I'm always preached on it last Sunday. Listen, not preaching about the gospel this morning. Still to this day, will find me short. But I'll tell you one thing that will find me short. You can preach, the preacher man can preach hell. Just as hard as he wants to. Just as hard as he wants to. But that don't set up any conviction in my heart. I'll tell you why this morning. The gospel name is recorded in the Lamb's Book of Life this morning. I was concerned for my fellow man. For me this morning. And not part of me, Lord. I'm not worried about my brother and my sister that ain't saved. It's for me. It's for me this morning. I'm all right. Whenever that time comes, and I've said this and preached this so many times, and I've helped in funerals where I've had to go to a husband or wife or the children and say, did they have any testimony? And it's been a few times, but they've just looked at me and they said, we don't know. We don't know this morning. I'm being real with you. I don't want it to be that way for me. But whenever my time comes, and you hear this old boy being put in the ground somewhere or another, listen, I want to know my friends and family that I'm all right this morning, that I've got a home in heaven. And I want to know the same for you this morning. I told one of our men's meeting this morning, that they say conviction's got to set up first of all in the heart. If you've never been convicted this morning, don't worry about it. I've been serious with you this morning. Conviction ain't never set up in your heart this morning. You say, preacher, what in the world are you talking about you'll find this morning? I'm going to say that with confidence and assurance this morning. Now, you're all right this morning. You just go back to being a kid or an adult, whatever you are, and when the time's right, God will speak to your heart, and you won't have to come say, is this what this is? You'll be coming saying, hey, I've got to get saved. I've got to do something about this now. I can't wait till so-and-so gets there. I can't wait on this or that. I've got to do something now. So without the convicting spirit this morning, I've not already told you this morning, I can baptize you with water all day long. I can baptize you with water every Sunday if that's what you want. But it ain't going to be nothing. It ain't going to do nothing for you this morning that Jesus Christ will do. Being baptized is important. I believe everybody's saved needs to join church and needs to be baptized into that church. What that does is that shows the world what Jesus Christ done for you.
That shows the world that you've accepted Him and that you've joined with His people this morning. But it's not what's going to get you to heaven. We get into a song this morning. Come to head. I want to best verse. I need to go. And I know I've been scattered about, but it's been a blessing to me this morning. It's been a blessing to me this morning. I hope and trust that you've been blessed. I hope and trust this morning that you got something out of the message this morning. Listen this morning. It's an individual thing, and it's an individual way this morning. And you say, wait a minute, preacher, you just said you got to have church. You've got to have the church. And you've got to be part of the church. But you can't ride in on the church's coattails this morning. Let me put it to you like this. You ever been in a good old timey service where they're shouting, soul saving, I'm talking about one of them just you get in there and you say, oh my goodness, wow. You know what I'm talking about this morning? I have been a part of those services, and then I've witnessed some of those services. Two different things, man. There's been sometimes when I've been in those services that I got to be a part of them. I was in a place where I was willing to come and humble myself down and get to the place where that I could enjoy it. But then there's been a few times where I just witnessed them. I might have stood right up here on the altar somewhere or another around the edge. I was right up close to that this morning. But listen, I wasn't a part of it because I didn't humble myself down. I didn't get where I needed to be a part of it. I witnessed it. I know what they was rejoicing about because I've been saved. I know what they was talking about. I was happy for them this morning, but I didn't get to join in. Don't stand around the edges looking in this morning. Come right on in. Come right on in. You play sports, there can only be so many people on the field, on the court, whatever, at one time. It ain't that way God's house. It ain't that way God's house. Me and Bud wants to get us up a basketball team. Five's all we need at a time to get on the court. Me and him and three more is all that can play at one time. But it ain't that way God's house. We can have how many wants to come. How many wants to join in. How many wants to be a part of it this morning. You can do that at God's house. You'll sing, you'll tell the message this morning. It's altar's here, it's open if you need it this morning. Follow my body. I love you. Go ahead.